The World, Facts. I wish someone could give me those 4 weeks back. I wish someone could give me those 4 weeks back. These were the words Hitler used to repeat in his last days. What were these 4 weeks? An illustrated dictator, and how Hitler fought World War II, and why he lost it. How his last days passed, he survived, or died. Where did his body go? I am Jerky's Aaron, and you are watching The World, Facts. After becoming Führer, Hitler broke international agreements. He began conscripting unemployed Germans into the army by the millions. In 1933, Germany spent only 3.5 billion marks on armaments. But by 1939, this amount had gone up to 26 billion marks. Due to the production of such a large number of weapons, the price of iron, oil and steel in Germany had tripled. In Germany, jobs increased so much that no one was unemployed. Germany's military power also increased manifold. That means 2 kills with 1 arrow. Hitler planned to avenge his defeat in World War I by turning Germany into a military machine. The first phase of this plan was to retake the territories taken from Germany in World War I. After World War I, many territories were taken from Germany. These included the Rhineland bordering France and much of Poland. Apart from these areas, there were large numbers of German citizens living in Czechoslovakia and Austria. Hitler himself was born in Austria. So now Hitler's plan was to return the territories taken from Germany in the First World War. And all over Europe, where Germans live, unite them and establish a great German empire to fight against the great powers. Hitler turned to Rhineland first. On March 7, 1936, the German army invaded the Rhineland and captured Rhineland without firing a shot. Britain and France did not resist. In this way, Hitler's morale was high. His next target was Austria. But Austria was protected by Mussolini, the ruler of Italy. Hitler supported Italy's invasion of Ethiopia. Hitler supported Mussolini and allowed the occupation of Austria. In 1938, the German army also raised its flag over Austria. Then, Hitler demanded the territory of Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia. He told British Prime Minister David Chamberlain that this was his last demand. Just give Sudetenland to Germany, then I won't ask for any territory. Chamberlain once again made a mistake and accepted Hitler's word, and this area was also given to Germany. After this success, Hitler instigated rebellions in the rest of Czechoslovakia, dismembering the country, and then they were captured one by one. Interestingly, during this time, Hitler met the president of Czechoslovakia, Dr. Emil Risha, and Hitler threatened Emil so much that the president fainted from fear, and they had to be injected into consciousness. However, after the occupation of Czechoslovakia, Hitler now turned his attention to Poland, but by then the world had understood Hitler's game. It was well known that Hitler breaks his promises, so don't believe anything he says. Britain and France made an agreement with Poland that they would support Poland if Germany attacked it. The situation on the border between Poland and Germany went from bad to worse. Then on August 13th, German soldiers disguised as Polish citizens attacked one of their own German radio stations. Hitler blamed the attack on Poland. The next day, Hitler's 1.5 million army attacked Poland. 1 million troops of Poland also went to the field. This number was not small, but the German Air Force was 10 times larger than the Polish Air Force. And the Polish army also had very few tanks. So Britain and France decided to help Poland. At 9 o'clock in the morning, on September 3rd, Great Britain and France sent an ultimatum to Hitler. Armistice against Poland, or prepare to fight with us. Germany has only 2 hours, until 11 o'clock, to end the war. Then 11 o'clock came, but nothing happened. Then, at 11:15, British Prime Minister, Mr. Chamberlain's voice was heard, on the radio, and he said, that, there was no response to our ultimatum, from Berlin. Now Britain is officially at war, with Germany. After that, France also declared war. By acquiring Poland, Hitler's dream of uniting the German nation, was fulfilled, but, the price of this success, was very high. That is, the Second World War had begun. Hitler was more threatened by Soviet Russia, than Britain and France. He did not want Britain, France, and Russia, to join forces, and surround him, on both the east, and west sides, so, Hitler lured the Russian ruler, Stalin, that, if he agreed with him, not to fight for 10 years, then, Germany would share its victories, with Russia. Stalin made a deal with Hitler, but, also went to war, for helping Hitler against Poland, and occupied eastern Poland. Undaunted by Russia, Hitler captured Holland, Norway, Belgium, Luxembourg, and France, in less than a year. In 10 days, the flag of victory was hoisted, over the French city of Paris. What was the secret of Hitler's great achievements? War technology and military training was the reason for success, but there was another reason, and that was drugs. German soldiers were given Pervitin drugs. This drug is a form of methamphetamine that can keep a person active for days. Not only the German army, but Hitler himself was heavily drugged. He had a doctor named Tudor, who was originally Jewish, but still a loyal employee of Hitler. He was injecting Hitler with methamphetamine, morphine, and other cocaine drugs. Not only this, the Hitler was also given medicines made from pig's liver. Hitler also used another drug, Ecodile. Because of these drugs, he was always active. Once, Hitler was saved from death due to an overdose of these drugs. You are looking at this picture of Hitler, in which Hitler raised his arm in the air. He could keep his arm in the air for a long time, and was not tired. This is also because Hitler used to inject glucose. Thus, Hitler was apparently winning every battle with the power of addiction. By 1940, however, Hitler's fame was everywhere. There was no remote possibility of him losing. But then, he had a small setback, and this small defeat changed the course of the war. What happened was that, after defeating France, Hitler understood that Britain would now surrender, but Britain had changed. The old Prime Minister of Great Britain was no more. Now, there was a new Prime Minister, Winston Churchill. He stood before Hitler. Hitler tells Churchill that he doesn't want to destroy the British Empire, so Churchill should befriend him or prepare for destruction. Churchill refused, so Hitler created a plan to occupy Britain, which was named Operation Sea Lion. But Operation Sea Lion required that the German Air Force first destroy the British Air Force and Navy, so that the German army could enter Britain. But when the German Air Force attacked, Britain had 2 surprises in store for it. A surprise was the radar. Yes, the radar. It was a British invention, and no other country had radar at that time. With the help of radar, Britain was already able to detect the German planes. And his planes used to arrive early to compete with the German planes. The second surprise was the Spitfire plane, whose engine was more powerful than the German planes. So, when the fighting started, more than 1,800 German aircraft were destroyed in just 4 months, from July 1940 to October, while Britain's loss was 1,000. This battle was called the Battle of Britain. Considering Hitler's war machine, the loss of 1,800 planes was not a big loss. But Hitler was tired of this war, because he did not want to waste his time in conquering a small country like Britain. He had his sights set on Soviet Russia. This may come as a surprise to you that Hitler hated the Russians more than the Jews. Because Russians are people of Slovak descent, who have a centuries-old enmity with the Germans. While defeating Russia, Hitler could establish a huge empire, so Hitler started planning to conquer Russia. The attack on Soviet Russia was not easy. Even Hitler's own generals said that this attack could be expensive. The end of the 19th century, French Emperor Napoleon was also in front of Hitler, who entered Russia, but was defeated by its cold weather. But Hitler was so determined that he did not care about the dangers, and swept away the generals as well. Hitler was making plans to expand the war, while political leaders from around the world were giving Hitler a message of peace. Mahatma Gandhi, a great leader of the subcontinent, also wrote a letter to Hitler, asking him to take the path of peace instead of war. He also wrote that, if not Britain, some other power will defeat you by learning from your own weapons. But Hitler also ignored the advice of the world leaders. Hitler's preparations for the invasion of Soviet Russia were so secretive that Stalin could not hear the tapes. Britain also warned Stalin that Hitler was preparing for war, but Stalin did not heed their words. On the other hand, Hitler's hatred towards the Russians was such that Hitler told his generals that he would wipe out Moscow, the capital of Russia, and will build a lake in place of the city, from which electricity will be generated. Russia's culture will be destroyed. Russian children will be taught in schools only to obey their German masters. Summer was the best time to attack Soviet Russia. In early 1941, Hitler's army was ready for this war. But in the meantime, Hitler invaded Greece to help his friend Mussolini, and also invaded Czechoslovakia. The invasion of Soviet Russia was postponed for 4 weeks, and this 4-week delay cost Hitler dearly. Years later, when Hitler was counting down the last days of his life in his bunker, he would exclaim, "I wish I could have those 4 weeks back." However, after occupying Greece and Czechoslovakia, Hitler turned to Soviet Russia. On the morning of June 22, before darkness fell, about 4 million German troops attacked Soviet Russia. This operation was named Operation Barbarossa. When the German forces started bombing, a Russian military officer called his general and said, "Sir, the Germans have attacked." General's reply was that, "You have not gone mad." But it was not madness, the attack had taken place. When Stalin realizes that Hitler had attacked, he had a nervous breakdown. He remained in a state of madness for 2 weeks, neither speaking nor listening to anyone. Finally, he came out of his state of mind after the explanation of his colleagues. And on the 4th of July, he delivered his first address of war to the Russian nation. Hitler wanted to reach Moscow as soon as possible, but when his army approached Moscow, he stopped the attack on Moscow and rushed into Ukraine. By stopping the attack on Moscow, the Russian army increased its number and defeated the German army. Hitler made another mistake in the same year, and that was to open a front against the United States after the Japanese attack on the American port harbor. In 1942, Hitler attacked the Russian city, Stalingrad. Because the city was named after Stalin, Hitler wanted to psychologically defeat Stalin by occupying it, but the cold weather broke the back of the German, and they surrendered. This defeat was the turning point of Hitler's life. The Russian army started attacking the Germans quickly. Most of the German troops were either killed or captured. Now the Russian army began to advance to attack the German capital, Berlin. Meanwhile, on the night of June 6, 1944, the American and British forces defeated the German forces in Normandy, France. The day of this attack was named D-Day. Now, the situation was that Russian forces were advancing from the east, and the American alliance was growing from the west. Even in these circumstances, the German nation was with Hitler. When Hitler's birthday came on April 20, 1944, what a birthday it was. The German nation felt defeated, yet, the German nation celebrated Hitler's birthday with great fanfare. With continued defeats, Hitler's government was confined to his bunker in Berlin, whom called Führer Bunker. Hitler's last days in this bunker were spent in utter despair. He used to shout at his officers, and was worried about the defeat of the army. Hitler was not even getting drugs anymore. Hitler's hands and feet began to tremble as the drug broke. Marks were beginning to form on his arm. His body was collapsing from the inside. Hitler was in great pain. By April 20, 1945, the Russian army had reached very close to Führer Bunker. Hitler knew that the end was near. He had no hope from his enemies except the death penalty. On April 28, when his friend Mussolini was killed, along with his lover, Hitler made a decision. The next day, he married his lover, Eva Braun, and made her Eva Hitler. She had waited for 15 years to marry Hitler. But alas, Eva got less than 24 hours to spend with her husband. On April 30, 1945, Hitler prepared to commit suicide. He wore a military uniform, and also emblazoned the Iron Truss of the First World War on the uniform, and went to the study room with his bride. His last gift to Eva Braun was a cyanide capsule. Then, the guard heard the gunshot and ran inside. Hitler's body lying there. He had been shot in the head. His bride was poisoned. Interestingly, Hitler was also born in April, and married, and died in the same month. In this bunker, Hitler spent the last days of his life and died. This bunker was badly damaged by bombing, but even today, tourists visit it. After Hitler's death, his propaganda master, Goebbels, also committed suicide. Goebbels had 6 innocent children. Goebbels first poisoned them, and then committed suicide with his wife. Innocent children are punished for the sins of their parents. The Nazis claimed that Hitler's empire would last for 1,000 years, but it ended in just 12 years. His guard, who saw Hitler's body, said that Hitler was not cruel at all. Hitler also released his army from the oath of loyalty before he died. Hitler ordered his guard that his body be set on fire so that it would not be desecrated like Mussolini. The guard burned the bodies of his Führer and his bride. But Russian soldiers reached there and put out the fire and took the bodies to Russia. The bodies were confirmed by Hitler's dental records. Let me also tell you the fact that only 5 of teeth Hitler were real, all others were fake. In 1970, the KGB of the Soviet intelligence agency threw Hitler's remains into a river in Germany. Hitler died, but World War II changed the geography of the world. After this war, many countries of the world became independent. Today, if the world is like a global village, it is because of the Second World War. After learning from the devastation of this war, the countries of the world turned their attention to new technology instead of fighting. The United Nations was created to stop war. Agreements were reached to prevent the development of nuclear weapons and other weapons. Even today, Hitler is so popular that, in 2016, Hitler's book, Mein Kampf, became a bestseller when Germany was allowed to reprint it. Yes, friends, here ends our part 2. After searching a century of newspapers, Google, and books, we've created this 2-video series on Hitler for you. If you like our effort, please share your opinion in the comments section. Your correction will be beneficial for us. Thank you.